A Secret Crush Romance written by Serena Hart. Prologue. Claire Bennett thought she'd left Nathaniel Cross in the city, left the silences, the almosts, the feelings she never said aloud. But when he follows her to a small town with nothing more than a bell and a question in his eyes, the years between them collapse. Whispers spread. Old promises stir. And Claire must decide if the truth she's hidden is worth the risk of finally speaking. Chapter 1, The White Rose and the Red. Part 1, The Lecture Hall. The first time Claire Bennett saw Nathaniel Cross, he was standing at the front of Hamilton University's largest lecture hall, speaking to a roomful of restless seniors. He didn't belong there, not really. The pressed charcoal suit, the silver tie clip glinting beneath the lights, the quiet, lethal precision of his posture. He was built for boardrooms, not classrooms. But the guest lecture series had brought him here, and Claire, who'd been nursing a lukewarm coffee after another night of tutoring freshmen for extra cash, found herself rooted in her seat. He's not even 35 and he's already closed deals worth over $3 billion, the girl next to her whispered, clearly impressed. And single. You know he's supposed to marry Victoria Langford? The Langford family owns. I know, Claire murmured, cutting her off before the words could sting. She didn't know why they did. On the stage, Nathaniel's gaze moved over the crowd like a searchlight, cool, assessing. It landed on her for one dizzying moment, and she could swear the corner of his mouth twitched. Business isn't about numbers, he said, voice low and deliberate. It's about leverage. Whoever controls the terms of the conversation controls the outcome. The room hushed, even the ones who'd been texting now watching him. Claire's pen moved almost unconsciously, capturing not just his words but the rhythm of them. He spoke like someone who didn't need to raise his voice to command attention. By the end of the lecture, half the students were plotting how to land internships at Sterling Cross Holdings. Claire, though, walked out with a far more dangerous thought. She liked him. It was ridiculous, impractical, and entirely out of her league, but the thought wouldn't leave her alone. 3 years later, she was his executive assistant. It hadn't been part of her plan. She joined Sterling Cross for the experience, expecting to be one of a dozen anonymous junior analysts, but fate, or the HR director, had decided otherwise. The CEO's previous assistant had quit, citing irreconcilable differences with his schedule demands. Nathaniel had needed someone efficient, discreet, and unshakable. Claire had been all three. Now, she sat across from his office desk, typing an email as the man himself leaned back in his chair, cigarette between his fingers, the skyline glittering behind him. You'll need to move the Seaview Estate meeting to Thursday, he said, glancing at his calendar. Langford's arriving that morning. There was the reminder. The White Rose. Victoria Langford had been living in Paris for the last 5 years, building her art career, but Nathaniel's circle never stopped treating her as his inevitable bride. Claire didn't look up from her screen. Noted. Anything else? His gaze lingered on her, just long enough for her to feel it. You're quiet today. She allowed herself a faint smile. Maybe I'm working. Nathaniel's smirk was barely there, but she caught it. Don't work too hard. You'll ruin the curve for the rest of the staff. It was moments like this, sharp edges softened into something almost warm, that made it harder to keep her feelings boxed away. He wasn't openly affectionate, but he noticed things. The way she took her coffee, the fact that she disliked the cold, the way she tapped her pen when she was thinking. Still, Nathaniel Cross was a man in a glass tower, and she was only allowed to look, not step inside. That evening, she stopped by the Hamilton auction house to deliver documents for a corporate donation. The building was dressed in crystal light, the sound of soft strings drifting from the main hall. She lingered in the doorway, catching a glimpse of the showcase gem, a rare pink diamond called First Glance. Nathaniel had mentioned it earlier that week, almost in passing. Someone will buy it for sentiment, not value, he'd said. That's the real price of beauty, it makes people irrational. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years being irrational where he was concerned. When she returned to the office to drop off the signed papers, Nathaniel was still there, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded. He looked up as she entered, his brow lifting. Still here? So are you. She set the folder on his desk. The auction went well. I thought you'd want the paperwork tonight. He studied her for a moment, then leaned back. You didn't stay for the after party? I wasn't invited, she said lightly. I could change that. Her pulse stumbled, but she kept her voice steady. I think you already have enough people to impress. His lips curved. You think I'm trying to impress them? You're Nathaniel Cross, she said, gathering her bag. You're always impressing someone. She turned before he could answer, because sometimes leaving first was the only way to keep her heart from showing. Rain combed the city into silver ribbons when Claire left for work. She told herself the weather would do what feelings could not: rinse everything clean. In the elevator, Naomi from corporate affairs slid in on a gust of perfume and gossip. Ravenhill this weekend, Naomi chirped. Lucas Ward called Mr. Cross at dawn. Are you going? I don't race, Claire said. You don't have to ride to be seen. Also, a crate arrived for him from Paris. White marble. People are whispering, a rose. Claire smiled like it didn't nick her. I'll log it with security. On the 53rd floor, Nathaniel's office smelled faintly of smoke and cedar. He stood by the window in a white shirt, cufflinks bright as stars. The pane was cracked an inch. The room breathed with the storm. Morning, he said. Coffee? She set his cup down. Procurement at 9, legal at 10, lunch with Meryl on the Orion rooftop. Lucas wants you at Ravenhill. He asked whether I'll be there. Nathaniel looked up. Will you? For work. For me. I have plans with Sophie. Bring her. She dislikes speed. Do you? Claire rearranged 3 pens until they pointed north. I'll confirm after lunch. He didn't push. The Orion building hovered above a sheet of cloud, its rooftop restaurant all glass and soft light. Claire shepherded time and talking points while Nathaniel coaxed a board member into reason. She admired the choreography: 3 compliments, 2 facts, 1 gentle trap. They were almost to the elevator when a woman intercepted them. Sleek navy dress, red mouth, engagement diamond. Mr. Cross, she purred. And Claire, right? I'm Bridget Hale. Robert's sister. Small town syllables carried too far. Claire kept her voice even. How is Robert? Busy, Bridget said sweetly. He remembers you. Willowbrook never forgets. Do you still visit often? When I can, Claire said. Nathaniel's presence shifted, a quiet wall at her back. Miss Hale, he said, cool as winter. If this is business, schedule it. Otherwise, we're due back. Bridget's smile thinned. Of course. Say hello to Victoria when she finally arrives. The city's quite eager. In the car, Nathaniel watched the river while the driver slipped into traffic. Robert Hale, he said at last. The one who ran his mouth. It was years ago, Claire replied. He humiliated you. He tried. She kept her gaze on the rain. I left. Nathaniel's jaw flexed. If he bothers you again, You'll what? Handle it. He could. That was the problem. She told herself not to go to Skyline Tower that night. Julian's text, Seaview amendments landed late. If you're nearby, gave her just enough excuse. The building glowed against the storm. Nathaniel opened the door barefoot, tie loose, shirt unbuttoned at the throat. Smoke curled from the balcony like a slow thought. Come in, he said. She handed him the folder. I flagged the clauses Langford will press. If he demands exclusivity, offer priority access instead. Pride without leverage. He skimmed, then smiled with half his mouth. Who controls the terms of the conversation? She answered his echo with one of her own. Exactly. He poured her water without asking. She didn't mention the white crate against the wall, Clark Atelier, Paris. A note taped to its side in delicate script. Pour vous en. For you, she translated before she could stop herself. His eyes moved to the crate and back. It arrived this morning. A rose? She asked. Probably. He considered, then added, I haven't opened it. Because you were working, she said. He studied her. Because I didn't want to. The admission sat between them. She set the glass down. You asked about Ravenhill, she said. You shouldn't ask me like that. How should I? Like you remember someone else exists. Rain ticked against the glass. He stubbed out his cigarette and braced both hands on the counter, head bent as if the marble could answer. I remember everything I've promised, he said. It's the promises I never made that won't stop making noise. Claire stepped toward the balcony to breathe the wet night. Down below, traffic streamed like molten wire. I can't live in a gray area forever, she said. If I stand here, I start to think I'm the kind of woman who waits. You're not, he said immediately. No, she agreed. I'm not. He came to stand a careful arm's length away. The distance felt like a confession. Come to Ravenhill, he said again lower. Not for company. For me. The words slid under her guard and caught. She pictured engines screaming over asphalt and the white crate. Immaculate, inevitable. You are my boss, she said. For now, he answered. Reckless. She closed her eyes, counted 5, opened them again. Stop asking me to stand beside White, she said. Choose or stop asking. He didn't move. The rain steadied into a silver curtain. Red, he said at last. You've always been red. The word hit low like a warm hand over a bruise. Claire made herself turn away. I'll think about Saturday. Promise? I don't promise things I might have to break. He nodded. Fair. She walked to the crate. The tape had loosened. Through the slat she glimpsed a carved petal, pale as breath. She pressed the seam back down with her business card, a tiny act of defiance that steadied her anyway. At the door, she looked over her shoulder. He stood in the spill of city light, a man built of edges who had learned to frame tenderness like a risk. She would go home, fold laundry with Sophie, pretend the decision was simple. It wasn't. Choices were already choosing her, inch by inch at a time. The elevator mirrored her calm as it closed. Inside, everything sprinted. Outside, the rain finally broke, and across the river the Orion sent up a white flare while the red lights at its base burned on. Chapter 2 Lines on Asphalt. Part 1 Ravenhill Invitations. By Friday, the city had wrung itself dry. The sky was a chalk smear. Claire spent the morning cutting through tasks with surgical neatness. Vendor approvals, a deck for investor relations, a security memo about the auction house's crowd control. She tried not to think about engines, white marble, or the way Nathaniel had said red like it meant something only they understood. Sophie looped an arm through hers at lunch. You're not going to Ravenhill, she announced. I might, Claire said. You won't enjoy it. I might, Claire repeated, quieter. Sophie sighed. Fine. If we go, I'm bringing earplugs and judgment. And snacks, Claire said. You judge better with sugar. True. At 2, Julian stepped into her office with a manila folder and the air of someone pretending not to carry gossip. Lucas Ward asked if you needed a helmet, he said. For what? For when he wins you in the post-race champagne war. His words. Tell Mr. Ward I don't belong to the spoils, Claire said. Julian's mouth quirked. He knows. She took the folder. Anything else? Langford Logistics asked about Saturday, Julian said. I redirected to comms. Also, the Orion wants the east facade in white again tonight. Her pen stilled. Again? They've been alternating. Tell them to keep the rotation, Claire said. Neutral. Julian nodded, then hesitated. He listens to you. He listens to strategy. Right? Julian said and left. Ravenhill Raceway sat beyond the industrial belt, a ribbon of black through grass and low hills. The paddock was a small city. Tents, machines, suits, photographers. Lucas Ward found them before they crossed the barricade, arms wide, smile brighter than the chrome at his back. Claire Bennett, he said as if tasting a good wine. Sophie Grant, your reputation precedes you. They say you can destroy a man with 2 sentences. Only if he deserves it, Sophie said. Do you? Absolutely, Lucas answered. He looked over Claire's shoulder. And here comes trouble. Nathaniel approached, black jacket, black gloves, helmet tucked against his hip. You came, he said to Claire. For the snacks, she said. And to keep Lucas from stealing your trophy. I steal hearts, not trophies, Lucas said. Sophie snorted. You steal attention. Which is priceless, Lucas replied. Come on, I'll show you the track. They walked the inner lane as Cruz checked torque and fuel. Nathaniel paused near a scarlet bike with matte trim, resting his palm on the seat. She doesn't forgive mistakes, he told Claire. I don't either, Claire said. His gaze flicked to her mouth and away. I know. The announcer's voice skated over the valley. The first heat came and went, tires singing, engines a living roar. Claire tried to pretend this was just noise, not the way Nathaniel leaned into danger like a question he refused to answer gently. Between heats, a man in a cream suit materialized, perfect hair, perfect teeth, the kind of smile designed in a boardroom. Mr. Cross, he said. Cedric Laurent. I represent a Swiss group considering positions in your energy arm. We can schedule Monday, Nathaniel said. Cedric's gaze slid to Claire. And you are? Busy, she said. Ms. Bennett manages his schedule, Nathaniel added. If you're lucky, she'll find you 15 minutes. Perhaps we could discuss over dinner. With you and Ms. Bennett. No, Nathaniel said so simply it took a second to register. Cedric blinked. I see. You don't, Nathaniel replied. But that's the point. Cedric retreated. Claire let air back into her lungs. Sophie bumped her shoulder. Possessive, she whispered. Professional, Claire corrected. At the grid, Nathaniel settled on the bike and became angle and intent. The flags snapped. They released. The world blurred, then turned into frames Claire would remember later. Nathaniel clipping an apex so narrowly the crowd gasped. Lucas slinging wide then slingshotting past. Sunlight burning for 1 second on Nathaniel's visor. The way his body read the curve and answered. On the final lap he and Lucas were neck and neck, 2 dark lines slicing the last straight. Nathaniel edged forward, not brute force but patience. He crossed first by less than a breath. Sophie hooped, then clapped a hand over her mouth as if joy were a secret. Claire felt it too, something rising that wasn't about winning. It was about watching him choose a line and commit. After the flag, he coasted into the paddock, engine purring. When he pulled off the helmet, his hair was a wreck and his smile unguarded. Champagne? Lucas asked, brandishing a bottle. Nathaniel glanced at Claire. Only if she doesn't mind the collateral. If you spray me, I'm billing you for dry cleaning, she said. Noted, he said and let Lucas aim elsewhere. They didn't notice the camera until it was too late. A blogger with a long lens and a hunger for myth. She caught Nathaniel looking at Claire like the race had ended at her feet. She caught Claire looking back like she'd forgotten the rules. The blogger's grin said headline. Julian appeared. We've got a problem, he murmured. Langford's plane was delayed. She lands tomorrow night. Someone leaked your attendance. Who? Nathaniel asked. Julian's gaze flicked toward the blogger. Pick a name. Nathaniel's jaw set. He turned to Claire. You should ride back with me. Less exposure. I'm not a secret, she said. She meant it to be light. It wasn't. Something like pain moved under his control. No, you're not. Lucas slung an arm around both of them. Dinner. Seaview. We'll make the gossip columns earn their keep. Claire considered saying no. Instead she said, fine. But I'm choosing dessert. Red velvet? Nathaniel asked too quickly. She didn't let the warmth show. We'll see. As they walked toward the cars, the valley swallowed the noise. In the brief quiet, Nathaniel brushed his knuckles against her sleeve, nothing more. It was almost nothing. It was everything. She walked beside him, matching his pace. The Seaview estate was lit like a promise. Pale lanterns floated along the hedges, casting a soft glow over the manicured drive. The ocean whispered beyond the cliff, though you could barely hear it over the gentle pulse of music spilling from the villa. Claire had been here twice before, both for fundraisers, and had learned that in places like this, every view was curated, every conversation an audition. Tonight was no different, except that she'd arrived not as Nathaniel's assistant shepherding a corporate agenda, but as whatever she was now. Something undefined. Something the room would try to define for her. Lucas was in his element, dispensing charm like champagne. Sophie trailed him briefly before losing interest and heading toward the dessert table, muttering something about salted caramel tarts. Nathaniel kept Claire close, his hand never quite touching hers, but close enough that she felt the gravitational pull of his presence. The Langford name surfaced in whispers as soon as they crossed the terrace. She felt eyes flick to her, slide to Nathaniel, then to the empty space where Victoria should have been. Claire straightened her spine. Inside, the main hall was a study in excess, ivory marble, art chosen to signal wealth without screaming it, windows framing the dark sea. Nathaniel's friends formed a loose orbit around him, men and women dressed like the night itself had been tailored. Mr. Cross, a deep voice greeted, and an older man in a midnight suit clasped Nathaniel's hand. And this must be Claire Bennett, Nathaniel said smoothly. My executive assistant. The man's gaze lingered half a second too long. Claire met it without flinching. Pleasure, she said, her tone polite but edged enough to discourage questions. Nathaniel moved her toward the corner bar, away from the swell of curious guests. Drink? Sparkling water, she said. He ordered for her without looking at the bartender, his eyes on the crowd as if calculating a move 3 plays ahead. You're quiet. You brought me to a room full of people who think they know your story, she said. I'm just watching the edits happen in real time. He gave a low hum. And what's your edit? That I'm here because you asked, she said. Not because I belong. His gaze sharpened. You do belong. She let a small smile ghost over her mouth. Then stop introducing me like an accessory. The corner of his mouth twitched, but he didn't argue. After dinner, grilled sea bass, rosemary potatoes, conversation threaded with politics and market speculation, Claire escaped to the terrace for air. The salt wind was cool against her skin. Below, the cliffs fell away into black water, the waves threading silver where moonlight caught them. She wasn't alone for long. Lucas appeared, 2 glasses in hand. "You looked like you needed an exit," he said. "I'm fine," she replied. "I didn't say you weren't," he said easily. "But I've been to enough of these to know when someone's calculating the escape routes." Claire accepted the glass of sparkling water he offered. "You're observant." "Only when it's interesting," Lucas said. He leaned on the railing. "You know, Nathaniel's not good at this." "At what?" "Making it obvious when he's chosen someone." Her fingers tightened on the glass. "That's not what this is." Lucas smiled faintly. "Maybe not to you. To the rest of us? It's already a headline." Before she could respond, Nathaniel stepped onto the terrace. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was cool. "Lucas, don't you have a card game waiting?" "Already folded," Lucas said, amused. He tipped his glass to Claire and slipped inside. Nathaniel came to stand beside her, hands in his pockets. "He talks too much." "He talks enough," Claire said. Nathaniel studied her profile. "You've been on edge all night. Because every glance feels like a question I don't have the right to answer." "You have every right," he said. Her laugh was low, almost bitter. "Not if the answer isn't the one they expect." The wind pulled at her hair. Nathaniel's gaze dropped briefly to the movement before he spoke. "Victoria lands tomorrow night." "I know," she said. "I want you at the Orion dinner next week." "That would be crowded." "That's the point," he said quietly. Claire turned to him fully. "Why?" He met her eyes without hesitation. "Because I'm not going to keep you in the gray area you hate. If you're beside me, it's because I want you there." Her pulse kicked. "And when she arrives?" "She'll understand," he said. "That sounds simple." "It isn't." They stood there, the ocean breathing below, the music spilling out in warm waves from behind them. Somewhere inside, someone laughed. Claire's chest ached with the pull of 1,000 unspoken things. "You make it very hard to keep my distance," she said finally. "That's intentional." She shook her head, setting the glass on the railing. "Don't make promises you can't keep." Nathaniel's reply was a low certainty. "I haven't made any yet. But when I do, you'll know I mean them." The night held its breath between them, the kind of stillness that precedes a choice. Claire turned away first, walking back inside. If she stayed another second, she wasn't sure she'd remember which of them was supposed to have the advantage. From the doorway, she caught his reflection in the glass. Still at the railing, eyes on the sea, a man calculating not numbers, but the cost of something far rarer. Chapter 3, First Glance. Part 1, The Leak. The article dropped at 7 a.m., right as Claire opened her email. It wasn't a real publication, just a glossy gossip site with a habit of alliteration and half-truths. Still, the headline bit, "King of Ravenhill, eyes on a red rose." Beneath it, the photo from the paddock, the one that caught Nathaniel looking at her like the track ended where she stood. Her phone hummed. "Sophie, don't spiral. It's clickbait." "Julian, comms is handling." An unnumbered text. "Ignore it. Nathaniel." Claire breathed in, out, and moved through the morning, hitting marks. Calendar, approvals, Seaview addendum, a brief for legal. When the elevator opened to the 53rd floor's low murmur, she didn't flinch. Naomi pried herself from a cluster near the glass wall, eyeliner winged like a dare. "You're trending," Naomi said, apology and awe. "I'm working," Claire replied. "Same thing," Naomi said, drifting away. At 9, Claire carried coffee into Nathaniel's office. He stood by the window with his jacket off, staring at the skyline. "I told them to bury it," he said without turning. "They'll push a correction within the hour." "It isn't libel," she said. "It's a narrative." "It's a lie," he corrected. She set the cup down. "We were at Ravenhill. I stood beside you. A photographer did her job. So will we." He finally looked at her. His attention always felt like opening a dark room and finding it warm. "Does it hurt you?" "Yes," she said. "And no. It's complicated. I'll uncomplicate it." "That isn't your job." For a second she thought he'd argue. Instead he inhaled like someone tamping down fire. "There's a board call at 10. After, we're walking to Hamilton." "To Hamilton?" "I'm guest lecturing." "You're coming?" "That's not on the calendar." "It is now." She should have objected. She didn't. Fine. They left through the service corridor, past freight doors. Outside, the streets were scrubbed clean by rain, the air sharp. No sunglasses, no shield. People saw him and parted. "You've never been a shielded man," she said as they crossed at the light. "No. Only a targeted one." At a florist, buckets of white roses flanked the door, A small tin of red ones sat on a crate like an afterthought. He glanced at them and didn't look away quickly enough. Don't, she said. Don't what? Buy symbolism you haven't earned. His mouth tipped. You think I buy things first? I think you're used to currency that isn't always money. And yours? Time, she said. And truth. At Hamilton, the hall was full, the rows packed with faces young enough to mistake clarity for ease. Nathaniel spoke about leverage again, but differently this time, stripped of certain armor she'd learned to catalog. He fielded questions, deflected a clumsy attempt to pry into gossip with the precision of a surgeon. After, a student approached Claire near the aisle. How did you become his assistant? I did my job, she said. And if you wanted to be him? She smiled. Then I'd stop asking for permission. On the walk back, he was quiet until a cross street pooled with sunlight. That thing you told the student? Did you tell yourself that? Eventually. What did you stop asking for permission to do? To leave, she said. The honesty surprised her. When it's time. He didn't miss the implication. Is it time? Not yet. He nodded once, almost relief, almost grief. Back upstairs, Julian intercepted them with a folder and a frown. The auction house moved the first glance showing to this afternoon. Private invite, limited press. Their director asked whether you'd attend, both of you. Nathaniel looked at Claire. He always did this, extended choice like a hand across a gap. She hated that it was also a test she insisted on grading herself. Yes, she said. We'll go. He didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. The auction lights were low and greedy. The pink diamond lay in its cradle, a blush trapped in stone. People spoke in murmurs that disguised hunger as taste. Claire stepped closer, reading the placard though she'd memorized them. 43 carats, provenance a tangle of rumor. First glance, Nathaniel said. Someone named it to break a heart. Or to sell one, Claire said. Both, he murmured. Cedric Laurent appeared like a well-tailored cloud. Mr. Cross. Miss Bennett. The city eats your headlines like sugar. Empty calories, Nathaniel said. Some pleasures are, Cedric replied. Are you bidding? A rose deserves a stone. A rose deserves water and dirt, Claire said. Stones sink things. Cedric's grin flickered. Efficient. Almost cruel. No, Nathaniel said softly. She's honest. A woman in a white sheath studied Claire with curiosity and disdain. You're Claire, she said. Serena Ward, Lucas's cousin. Nice to meet you, Claire said. Likewise. Lucas says you keep Nathaniel honest. I try to keep the calendar honest. People are more complicated. Serena's mouth curved. We'll see. They didn't stay long. Outside, afternoon leaned blue. At the curb, a cyclist veered too close. Nathaniel's arm landed around Claire's waist, fast as a reflex, pulling her clear. She felt the hard line of him, the shock of being the one protected instead of the one preparing. Careful, he said, voice rough. Always, she answered, even as her pulse took an uncareful path. Back at Sterling Cross, an email waited from a name that made her mouth go dry. Victoria Langford. Subject line, coffee? The body was one line, elegant and merciless. I land tomorrow night. I'd like to meet you before the dinner. Claire sat very still. Then she forwarded the email to Nathaniel with 2 words. Your call. His reply came quickly. Ours. She stared at the screen, then at the skyline. The city had slipped into that hour where everything looks like a promise and a warning. She was tired of being both. Outside, the Orion's lights began their slow rotation. Somewhere, sirens stitched the distance shut tight. The meeting with Victoria was set for 11 a.m. at the Meridian Hotel Lounge. Nathaniel sent one message that morning. I'll be there before you. Claire arrived 5 minutes early anyway. The lounge was all muted velvet and quiet wealth, the kind of place where conversations were measured in sips of espresso. She chose a table near the window, where the light was soft enough to flatter but not blind. At exactly 11, a woman in a cream coat swept in. Dark hair twisted into a low knot, sunglasses she didn't remove until she was standing at the table. Her smile was precise, warm enough to be polite, cool enough to assert distance. Claire Bennett, she said, offering her hand. Victoria Langford. Claire took it. Welcome back to the city. Thank you. It's different and yet not. Victoria slid into the seat opposite, placing her gloves neatly on the table. Nathaniel speaks highly of your work. That's generous of him. Generosity isn't a word I've heard used about Nathaniel. Victoria's eyes were steady, assessing. I imagine you're not easily intimidated. I work with him, Claire said simply. The server appeared, took their coffee orders and vanished. Victoria leaned back, crossing her legs. I thought it best we meet before the dinner. Gossip tends to embellish. I prefer clarity. Claire met her gaze without flinching. And what have you heard? That you're efficient, discreet, and always at his side. Victoria's tone made it sound like a job description and an accusation. Some say that means more than it does. And what do you think? Claire asked. Victoria tilted her head. I think Nathaniel keeps people exactly where he wants them. That's why he's so effective. And why he's so dangerous. The coffees arrived, steam curling between them. Claire stirred hers slowly, letting the spoon's soft chime fill the pause. If you're looking for reassurance, I can only speak for myself. I'm here because I do my job well. Victoria's smile returned, faint and knowing. And because you're loyal. Loyalty is part of the job, Claire said. Yes, Victoria murmured. But it's rarely mutual. Before Claire could respond, Nathaniel appeared, dark suit, no tie, the kind of presence that shifted the room's axis without effort. He greeted Victoria with a brief kiss to the cheek, then sat beside Claire instead of across from her. You two have met, he said. Indeed, Victoria replied. Miss Bennett has been illuminating. Nathaniel's eyes flicked to Claire. She usually is. The conversation that followed was smooth, layered with talk of travel, art, and business alliances. But beneath it ran an undercurrent Claire couldn't quite name, something like a test with no agreed rules. When the meeting ended, Victoria rose gracefully. I'll see you both at the dinner, she said, her gaze lingering on Nathaniel for a beat too long before moving to Claire. And Miss Bennett, thank you for the coffee. After she left, Nathaniel stayed seated, watching the door. What was that? Claire asked. A reconnaissance, he said. She wanted to see if you'd blink. Did I? He turned to her, mouth curving just slightly. Not once. Back at the office, the gossip from the Ravenhill article had already begun to fade, replaced by speculation about Victoria's return. Naomi delivered a stack of updated talking points for the Orion dinner, glancing between them like she was watching a storm form. Everyone's expecting fireworks, Naomi said. Then we'll give them business, Nathaniel replied. Claire followed him into his office. Why bring me into this? If you're trying to prove something, there are easier ways. He leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. It's not about proving. It's about placement. If you're not in the room, they'll decide where you stand. If you are, they can't. She studied him. And where do I stand? In the only place I trust, he said. It was the kind of answer that made her pulse skip, and the kind she couldn't afford to believe without evidence. That evening, she and Sophie shared takeout at the apartment. Sophie propped her chin on her hand. So, the infamous Victoria? Poised. Intelligent. Knows her angles, Claire said. And she sees me as a variable she doesn't like. Sophie whistled softly. Dangerous territory. Claire speared a piece of chicken. I can handle dangerous. It's the uncertainty that gets me. Sophie eyed her. You're either going to walk away clean, or you're going to burn. Maybe both, Claire said. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. Nathaniel, the Orion is ours next week. We're red. She stared at the message, the two words loud in the quiet. She didn't reply. Not yet. The skyline outside glimmered like a line of possibilities she hadn't chosen, and wasn't sure she could resist. Chapter 4: Rotation of Lights. Part 1: Preparations and Pressure. By Monday, the city braced for spectacle. Every calendar in Claire's orbit had bent around the Orion dinner as if lights could set the tide. She built the run of show like a bridge. Minute-by-minute notes, seating maps, an exit plan that didn't look like an exit. Nathaniel skimmed her draft, cuffs rolled, attention clean and unsparing. You put Victoria at my left. Optics, Claire said. History to your left, strategy to your right. My right is you. Julian, she corrected. His breath tugged into almost laughter. Cruel. Accurate. She tapped contingencies. If questions go feral, we pivot to the private gallery. You'll be beside me? Until the first course. And after? Depends whether you behave. He signed, reached for the next brief. The motion felt domestic. Naomi arrived with mock-ups. A fashion house will dress you, she told Claire. Red silk. Their word, an assertion. Who leaked my size? Claire asked. A fairy, Naomi said, side-eyeing Nathaniel. He didn't look up. Accept. I decide what I wear, Claire said. You do, he said. I approve of good decisions. The garment bag whispered against her palm when it came. She didn't open it at work. Around noon Lucas breezed in with macarons. Color-coded sins, he said, offering a dark one to Sophie, lured upstairs by dessert. What's this? Sophie asked. Jealousy, Lucas said. Fitting, Sophie muttered, then lowered her voice. Willowbrook heard you're partnering with Evan. Robert's saying you're engaged. Lucas whistled. Who's Evan? A friend, Claire said. Not my fiancé. Nathaniel's head lifted. Engaged? No, she said sharp. Gossip. I'll handle it. He withdrew a heat she could feel. All right. Security briefed at 3. Ortiz, the head, addressed Claire like a principal asset. If we move Mr. Cross, we move you. I'm not a VIP. Tonight you are, Ortiz said. By late afternoon the air tasted metallic. At home she unzipped the bag at last. Red slid out like a secret told to the right ear. She stepped into it, the silk learned her. Simple diamonds, hair smoothed low, heels she could run in. Weaponized elegance, Sophie said. It's a dress, Claire said. The Orion glowed in bands when they arrived. White crowning the spire, red pulsing low. Reporters clustered at the cordon. Inside, stone and rain had been polished into money. Nathaniel waited at the private elevators, black tie, white pocket square, the roughest hint of stubble saving perfection from itself. He looked at Claire without a smile and with something worse. Red, he said softly. You asked, she answered, taking his arm because the cameras were watching and because she wanted to. In the elevator his gaze traveled the seam of silk. You're going to ruin me. Unlikely, she said. You're too expensive. The doors opened to glass and starlight. Strings tuned, caterers moved. Victoria was already there, in white of course, speaking to an art director. She turned, took in Claire, and paused long enough to register a variable she couldn't control. Ms. Langford, Claire said. Ms. Bennett, Victoria returned. Red suits you. It suits the building, Claire said. We're on brand. Are you? Victoria asked. Nathaniel offered each a nod, then offered Claire the nearer seat. It was courteous. It was also a signal. During the first course Claire worked, rescuing a dignitary from a stray place card, cueing a video reel, intercepting a photographer with a smile that closed doors. Nathaniel's hand found the back of her chair sometimes, brief and claiming, punctuation only she could read. During the second course a journalist approached under the banner of philanthropy. Mr. Cross, will your international commitments change now that Ms. Langford has returned? They change when the numbers demand it, Nathaniel said. And Ms. Bennett's role? Expanding. In what capacity? In mine, he answered, and the man retreated, already composing verbs. The show began, white racing up the skin of the tower, red breathing from its core. Music swelled. Claire looked at the glass and saw 2 reflections. White, red, less a choice than a confession. Her phone buzzed. Sophie, Willowbrook thread exploding. Robert says you're spoken for. Want me to clap back? No, Claire typed. Leave it. I'll handle it after. When she looked up, Nathaniel was watching her hands. Problem? My town, she said. It photographs poorly. I can make a call. You can stop trying to carry me, she said low. Or one day I'll let you and you won't know where to set me down. He inhaled like a man recognizing the taste of no. Understood. Dessert arrived, red velvet of course. Nathaniel waited until she lifted her fork before touching his, as if obeying a private law. Across the table Victoria's smile thinned. The toast came last. He spoke about investment in cities, about art as infrastructure for hope. At the end he paused, stepped off script. To the people who keep us honest when the numbers are too loud, he said, eyes on Claire. Merci. Seulement vous. French moved through the room like a breeze that knew where to go. Phones caught the line and sent it sprinting into the dark. Claire's heart slammed once, hard enough to bruise. She didn't look away. Applause tore the moment open. Orion burned white and red. Somewhere below, sirens stitched traffic shut. Symbols, she thought, were learning to use them. Her phone pulsed again. Heaven this time, a simple check-in she didn't open. Boundaries, she told herself. Finish the night, survive the glow, and then speak for herself. Not for Nathaniel. Not for Willowbrook today. After the clatter softened, Victoria leaned in with a perfect smile. Romantic, she said. For a corporate toast. Accurate, Claire said. Nathaniel's knuckles brushed the back of her chair. Nothing, everything. The night had shaped itself around a sentence, and she felt the shape press back. She lifted her glass and drank to hubris and timing, to the space between a promise and its proof. She did not touch his hand. The applause dissolved into a low tide of conversation, the room slipping back into the rhythm of polite decadence. Nathaniel leaned toward a senator from the East Coast, trading something that sounded like policy for something that looked like agreement. Claire excused herself under the pretense of checking the event's timing, but in truth she needed the terrace. Outside, the air was cooler, washed in the mingled glow of the Orion's lights. From here, the city was a quilt of movement stitched together by streets, headlights threading through dark. She gripped the railing, the glass beneath her fingertips faintly vibrating from the bass of the music inside. She didn't hear Victoria until she was beside her. "Spectacular view," Victoria said. "Although I imagine you've had better." Claire didn't look at her. "The view changes depending on where you stand. And who you stand beside," Victoria said lightly. Claire glanced at her then. "Is that your point?" "Only an observation," Victoria replied, though her smile didn't quite meet her eyes. "Nathaniel has always been a man who knows his symbols. You looked striking tonight, more striking than I expected." "That sounds like a compliment," Claire said. "It's meant as one," Victoria answered, but there was a pause before she added, "Just be careful. Being a symbol is intoxicating, until you realize you're not the one writing the story." Claire held her gaze. "I've never been afraid to write my own." Something flickered in Victoria's expression, surprise, maybe approval, before she turned toward the doorway. "We'll see," she said and left. Julian found her 5 minutes later, tablet in hand. "Two things," he said. "First, Coms wants to know if we're leaning into the French toast line or downplaying it." Claire arched a brow. "It's already trending. They don't get to downplay it." "That's what I told them," Julian said. "Second, Willowbrook chatter is escalating. Robert Hale posted an old photo of you and Evan, caption "Good things come to those who wait." Claire's jaw tightened. "Let it run for now." Julian hesitated. "Nathaniel will want." "Nathaniel will be told later," she said firmly. "This is mine to handle." Julian gave her a quick, sharp nod, the kind that said he understood lines. Understood. By the time she returned inside, the dinner was moving toward its final act. Nathaniel was cornered by an art collector with a penchant for overstaying her welcome. Claire intercepted, murmuring a fabricated scheduling conflict that Nathaniel accepted without missing a beat. As they walked toward the exit, his hand brushed her back, a subtle guide through the crowd, but the warmth of it lingered longer than it should. "You disappeared," he said. "I needed air." "With Victoria?" Claire met his gaze. "She found me." "What did she want?" "To warn me about you." He smiled faintly. And I told her I write my own story," Claire said. The elevator doors closed around them, muting the hum of the event. Nathaniel's smile faded into something more measured. "Do you?" "Always," she said. He studied her as if cataloging the weight behind the word. "Good. I don't want you here because I wrote you in. I want you here because you chose it." She almost asked, "And if I chose to leave?" But she didn't, because the answer might be truer than she was ready for. The ride to Skyline Tower was quiet except for the city's late-night murmur. In the private elevator, Nathaniel slid his tie loose, the crisp edges of the evening beginning to unravel. "You handled tonight well," he said. "It's my job," she replied. "That's not what I meant." She turned to face him. "Then say what you mean." His eyes held hers. "You made it clear you're not an accessory. And you made it impossible for them to imagine this without you." Her pulse thudded once hard. "Is that what you wanted?" "It's what I needed," he said simply. The elevator chimed. He stepped aside for her to exit first, a gesture that felt like both courtesy and caution. Back in her apartment, Sophie was curled on the couch with tea. "Survived?" she asked. "Survived," Claire confirmed. She kicked off her heels and dropped the garment bag over a chair. Sophie eyed her. "And the toast?" "French," Claire said. "Unnecessary. But effective," Sophie guessed. Claire didn't answer. She padded to her room, the city's lights winking through the blinds. She thought of Victoria's warning, Julian's loyalty, Nathaniel's careful choice of merci and only you. And she thought, not for the first time, that dangerous men didn't always wear the danger on the outside. Sometimes they wrapped it in silk and let you choose whether to touch it. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, and told herself she was still choosing. Chapter 5, The Gossip That Grows. Part 1, Willowbrook Whispers. Claire woke to 3 missed calls from her mother and a text from Evan. "Might be easier if we addressed it together." The it didn't need explanation. Overnight, Robert Hale's post had been shared by half of Willowbrook, layered with captions ranging from sentimental to speculative. One small-town bakery had even reposted it with a wink emoji, as if congratulating her on a wedding that didn't exist. Sophie was already in the kitchen, scrolling on her tablet. "Willowbrook's running with it," she said. "Robert's telling anyone who'll listen that you've been quietly engaged to Evan since last spring." Claire poured coffee. "Last spring I was negotiating the Rains merger and barely had time to sleep. That's not the point. The point is that people believe him." "I'll call Evan," Claire said. They met at a small cafe downtown, one of the few places Nathaniel's orbit didn't automatically touch. Evan was already there, leaning back in his chair, hands wrapped around a mug. He'd always been the kind of man who carried the warmth of a hearth with him, and today was no different. "You look tired," he said as she sat. "Long week," she said. "And it's only Tuesday." "I didn't mean for it to blow up like this," Evan said. "Robert cornered me at the hardware store, asked if we were serious. I said we were friends. Next thing I knew, he was spinning it into something else." "Friends don't need damage control," Claire said. "But I do need to make it clear. Publicly." Evan hesitated. "Are you sure? The gossip will die down eventually." "Not before it reaches the wrong ears," she said. "And I can't have Nathaniel, or anyone else, thinking there's truth to it." "Anyone else?" Evan repeated, faintly amused. "You mean Nathaniel?" Claire didn't answer. They agreed to post a joint statement. Short, factual, no extra oxygen for Robert to fan into flame. Evan promised to call her mother and smooth things over. When Claire left the cafe, she checked her phone. One message from Nathaniel. "Boardroom. No." Sterling Cross's top floor was a thrum of controlled urgency when she arrived. Nathaniel was at the head of the table, suit jacket draped over the chair, sleeves rolled. His gaze tracked her the moment she entered. "Glad you could join us," he said. She slid into the seat beside Julian, flipping open her notebook. "What's the fire?" "Foreign bid on one of our energy subsidiaries," Nathaniel said. "Aggressive and designed to rattle shareholders before the Orion momentum settles." Julian passed her a packet of figures. Claire scanned them quickly. "If we delay response by 48 hours, we'll see their leverage drop. But we can't appear unprepared, issue a holding statement that references a pending audit." Nathaniel's mouth curved slightly. "See? This is why you don't get to take long lunches." She almost smiled. It was 30 minutes. The meeting ran another hour, and when it ended, Nathaniel gestured for her to stay. Julian closed the door on his way out. "I saw the post," Nathaniel said without preamble. "I've handled it," Claire replied. "You should have told me." "I'm telling you now." His jaw worked. "Robert's baiting you." "Robert's baiting himself. He wants a reaction and I won't give him one he can use." "You think this doesn't affect me?" "It shouldn't," she said evenly. "Unless you're planning to make a claim." The air between them sharpened. "Don't tempt me," he said. Her pulse kicked, but she kept her tone neutral. "Then don't let Willowbrook set your agenda." For a long moment, he just looked at her like he was deciding which rule to break first. Finally he said, "We're going to Seaview this weekend. Bring Sophie. Bring Evan if you need cover." "I don't need cover." "Then bring whoever you want. Just be there." That evening she drafted the statement with Evan. Friends since childhood, nothing more. Proud to support each other's ventures, and that's the truth. By the time it posted, Sophie had already sent her a screenshot of comments. Half relief, half suspicion. Gossip didn't vanish. It just shifted form. Claire set her phone face down. Outside, the skyline was rimmed in low clouds, the Orion's lights bleeding into the mist. Her inbox pinged. "Nathaniel again. Seaview is about business. But I'd like it to be about more than that." She stared at the message until the words blurred, then typed nothing and closed the screen. She wasn't ready to answer, not yet. Sophie stuffed a weekend bag like she was fleeing a coup. "If Langford shows up at his own estate, I'm stealing their candlesticks," she declared. "It's not theft if you return them," Claire said. "I won't," Sophie said. "Consider it a tax on stress." Evan called while Claire coaxed a stubborn clasp on her tote. "I'm going to skip Seaview," he said. "My presence would make Robert feel important. Your mother wants me to look at a burst pipe." "Tell her I'll call tonight," Claire said. "You'll be fine," Evan added. "Remember you don't owe anyone a performance." She hung up and breathed. Choice, she reminded herself, worked better when used. The drive down the coast loosened the city's hold. Seaview rose from hibiscus and white stone, the Atlantic wearing a wind-ruffled mood. Lucas greeted them on the steps as if he owned the horizon. "Welcome to the Temple of Bad Decisions," he said. "We confess at sunset." Nathaniel waited just inside, jacket off, shirt open at the throat, a cigarette balanced unlit between fingers too impatient for ceremony. His gaze tracked Claire before it acknowledged the room. "You came," he said. "For the business," she said. "And the ocean," Sophie added. Nathaniel's mouth tilted. "There's a strategy session in an hour. Quarterlies, then the foreign bid. After that, dinner on the terrace." Claire moved through logistics like rain through gutters, swift, contained. Seaview had its own staff, but everyone deferred to Nathaniel as if the deed were written on his bones. When the meeting began, she sat at his right. Lucas slouched opposite, performing chaos in a play directed by return on investment. They fought the numbers until they purred. Claire sketched an action tree, elegant and ruthless, arrowing toward an outcome no rival could cheaply disrupt. "You're frightening when you're brilliant," Lucas said. "Then be afraid," Nathaniel murmured. After Claire found the terrace, the ocean unrolled a steady lung. She leaned on the balustrade and let light unspool the weak from her shoulders. "Does it help?" Nathaniel asked, arriving with the quiet of someone who had learned to move without announcing it. "Some," she said. "It reminds me most storms end." He flicked his lighter, then didn't use it, turning the cigarette like a thought he refused to finish. "Not if you enjoy them." "Do you?" "I enjoy the moment they break." Wind mussed his hair, the sea freckled his shoes. He seemed less like a statue and more like a man who had spent too long pretending marble was comfortable. "Robert won't stop," he said. "Say the word and I'll end his hobby." "You can't buy Willowbrook," she said. "And you can't bulldoze gossip without paving yourself under it." "I can make it expensive." "It already is," she said. "For me. I intend to pay my own bill." He stood very still. "What do you need from me, Claire?" She had not expected the question to feel like a door. "Space to choose," she said. "And for you to choose without using me as proof." He nodded, something grave crossing his eyes. "Understood." Lucas interrupted with a flourish and a violinist who looked 12 and played like rain. Sophie materialized with 2 red velvet cupcakes. String lights clicked on. Dinner was lemon and herbs, gossip and laughter. Nathaniel seated the head of the table to light conversation and watched Claire more than the view. She felt it. At dessert he touched his glass. "A note on our bid," he said, keeping it brief, keeping it bloodless. Then, softer, "and to the ones who do the quiet work when the noise is loud." Not French this time. But the glance was the same and so was the heat it left. After they walked the cliff path, Sophie and Lucas fell behind, arguing about playlists. The sea threw breath against the rocks, salt dampening Claire's hair. "You are not obligated to stay," Nathaniel said suddenly. "I know. If you go, I'll still mean the things I've said." "You haven't said anything." "I have," he said. "I've said them badly." She thought of the crate in his apartment, unopened, beautiful by reputation, heavy by assumption. "Open it," she said. "The crate?" "The thing you promised someone else while you were trying not to promise me anything." He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. "Tomorrow. Come by. I'll open it." "Good," she said. They reached a bend where the path pressed close to the cliff. Wind shoved. Claire's heels slipped on fine gravel. She pitched a fraction forward, the world tilting into ocean. He pulled her back in a single, unhesitating movement, palm firm against her spine, other hand gripping her forearm. The rough exhale near her ears smelled like cedar and restraint. "Careful," he said, voice frayed. "I told you," she whispered. "Storms end. Not this one." They didn't move for a beat measured in oceans. Then she stepped away, reclaiming her balance and her breath at once. Later, in her room, the sea hummed under the windows. She texted Evan, "Arrived. All good. Tell Mom I'll call tomorrow." He replied with a thumbs up and a line about the pipe. "Fixed. Willowbrook has its water again." Claire set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling until the ceiling looked back. She could still feel where Nathaniel's hand had braced her, a place her body recognized before her mind could categorize it. From the lawn below, the violin lifted again. The tune snagged on a memory, a lecture hall, a searchlight gaze, a note in a margin, "Control the terms." She had thought she understood. Now she suspected the truer rule lived beneath it. Control the distance or the distance controls you. She turned off the lamp. The room darkened, the ocean did not. Between the two, she placed her decision like a coin on a tongue, cold and bright and not yet swallowed. Thank you for listening to Silent Heart Story, where every love that couldn't be said is finally heard. If today's story touched something quiet in you, a memory, a secret wish, or simply the feeling of being seen, then stay with us. Subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a heartbeat. Every day, a new whisper awaits.